Hello and welcome back to the Chelmsford News Show. I'm Tom Christiano. Well, tonight we have a wonderful debate with two state representative candidates for the 14th Middlesex District of Massachusetts. We have a Democratic Simon Cataldo, and we have the Republican candidate Rodney Cleaves with us tonight. The current state representative, Tammy Govea, decided not to run for re-election this year. The election will take place on Tuesday, November 8th. However, early voting will start on October 22nd. So you could all start voting in a few weeks, and hopefully you'll catch part one of this video if you're just watching part two now, because it was a very interesting debate in that first 30 minutes. So we're going to alternate who begins each question, and this one will be starting with Simon Cataldo. Simon, one of the biggest problems in Massachusetts is the shortage of affordable housing. How can the state help increase our inventory of housing here in Massachusetts?
I think it's universally accepted, Tom, that we have a housing crisis in Massachusetts. It's affecting our district. It's affecting many other parts of the Commonwealth. I think that the state has been going about this the wrong way. We're all stick and no carrot when it comes to housing. We have unfunded mandates that are imposed on our towns. The towns don't have enough dexterity to deal with these issues in local ways. In terms of the state government's role in our housing challenges, I'd like to see the state be more proactive in terms of incentivizing the types of housing that are needed on the regional level: senior housing, veterans housing, affordable housing, and make this an opportunity instead of a potential punishment for a town that's not doing enough according to what the statewide mandate says. So there's many different ways that we could do that. We could be offering towns things that they need, but that they can't pay for with their property taxes alone, or even things that they want, things like electric buses for schools to make the air that our kids are breathing around the school building healthier. There are so many things that our towns need. We should be offering those for towns who are leaders on housing issues that are affecting us regionally.
Yes, thank you, Simon. Rodney?
Excellent question. Thank you. By the way, that first session went by very quickly.
It did, didn't it, Rodney?
Minutes. I was
Yes.
surprised. The unfortunate reality is anybody who's going to build any kind of housing is usually an individual contractor, sometimes in partnership with the town.
Yeah.
The town isn't going to come in and say, we're zoned for low-income housing, let's build a house.
Yeah.
They have to get somebody to do it. And I agree wholeheartely with Simon. I think this is one issue we're not going to have a debate on at all. I'm with you, except the electric bus thing. But I would love to see, now I know in Chelmsford and I know in Acton, not sure about Concord and Carlisle, there are some unused former mill buildings, former public buildings that could be converted to low-income housing. And I agree, housing is a problem. If I didn't own my house, I'm not sure I could afford to rent here. I have a 30-some-odd, I'm not going to give her age, daughter who's having a hard time finding a place to live. Yeah. She will find a place eventually, but it's not going to be the kind of place I'd want to live in. We need some form of low-income housing, but that has to be in partnership with the developers. You know, all stick and no carrot, I like that. We need to put down the stick and pick up a lot of carrots, is what we need to do. The towns can find a way to do it. We have zoning that allows for it. We can do overlay zoning. The answer is not as simple as it is just to simply say, do we need more, what can you do about low-income housing? I personally can't do anything about it. Here's a place where maybe some state funding could come in handy. We're forced to do a certain amount of housing near MBTA stops, that kind of thing, because of the MBTA corridor. And it's almost impossible for some towns to get that done just because they're not zoned to do it. And the state pushes these mandates out and then just sits back and says, we told you to do it, get it done. And it's not as easy as it sounds. And no, I would love to find a way that individuals and small families could live affordably and actually get a job and support themselves.
Yes, thank you. What's that? Okay. Then, Rodney, we'll begin the next topic with you again. Okay. This one's a little bit longer, this topic. What are your thoughts about allowing driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants? The House and Senate held a ceremonial bill signing for legislation that would allow, starting on July 1st, 2023, undocumented illegal immigrants to apply for a Massachusetts standard driver's license. The governor had vetoed the bill, and the House and Senate overrode the governor's veto.
Well, you probably know, TC, I was one of the people that were out there collecting signatures for the anti-immigration license bill. And I collected almost 1,000 signatures just on my own. The problem with this is you had one word in there that kills me, and this is where I depart from my own party, the standard license.
Yeah.
2 years ago, the legislature said that anybody who gets a license is automatically placed on the voter registration rolls. And also, if they deal with housing or if they apply for a state ID, there are a few other, and mass health, those are the four things. Now, I know empirically that the state is not monitoring this because 3 of my foster daughters ended up on the voter registration rolls and none of them are citizens.
Do they have driver's licenses?
No, they applied for state IDs in this case. I think anybody on our roads should be properly trained and evaluated, have their cars properly insured. I don't have any problem with that. That's where I differ from the initiative. But it needs to be a license that does not allow them to get onto the voter registration rolls automatically. That's what I hate. This new law that came out and said anybody can get a license and anybody can be put on the voter registration rolls.
But does it do it automatically?
Well, they have to opt out. On the back of the form,
You're
it
sure
says
about
if you
that?
do, if you don't want to be on the voter registration rolls, check here.
But
And
other than that,
even on the
they will get
Secretary,
the driver's license
Yeah.
and then be automatically registered to vote
unless they opt out.
unless they opt out.
And that's
interesting.
even right on the Secretary of State's website. If you look at his question and answers, it's the very last question asked. What if I'm not a citizen? And the Secretary of State Galvin said, if you're not a citizen, then you should opt out. You should opt out.
But if
so
they don't opt out
if
and
they-
check that block,
Right, and
they
this-
will be registered to vote.
They would be registered
even though
to vote.
they're an undocumented immigrant.
Right. Now, there are other people here that have driver's licenses that are not citizens. Don't get me wrong. If you're here legally on a green card, on a work visa, or on a student visa, or just visiting, I mean, if anybody with a license that is written in English can come from another country and drive for a year before they have to apply for a driver's license. But what we're now talking about is that linkage between the license and the automatic voter registration. That's what I'm against. And if we can find a way to give non-citizens a license that prohibits it, that unlinks it from the automatic voter registration, I will support it. But I can't support the bill as it's written. It has to be repealed so we can write a better bill.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rodney. Simon?
We should vote yes on 4. The issue that Rod is talking about is a purely administrative issue. This is not going to allow people who are not here lawfully to vote en masse or at all in our elections. I'm proud to be one of many current or former members of law enforcement officers who believe that this bill is the right thing to do. This type of bill in other states has reduced the number of hit and run accidents. It's reduced the number of abandoned cars. It helps people make sure that they have insurance so that if you have an accident, God forbid, with somebody who is not documented, that they will have insurance too. Our top election official in Massachusetts supports this law, the Secretary of State. This was passed overwhelmingly by a legislature. It was a veto-proof majority. This is not going to allow people to vote illegally. And I think that if anybody makes accusations about our most fundamental right, which is our right to vote, then they really better bring the bacon. You better have proof if you're going to do anything that potentially makes it harder for people who are here legally to vote. And that just doesn't exist. I say that as somebody who has worked at our highest levels in election integrity cases federally and on the state level. This is not a law that is going to cause widespread voter fraud. We need to be making it easier for people to vote, not using irrelevant arguments that are specious and have nothing to do with voting to stop people from getting driver's licenses in a manner that makes all of us more safe. We want our roads to be more safe. We want our communities to be more safe. I have worked in communities in Harlem, New York City, and in Maricopa County when I was prosecuting Sheriff Joe Arpaio, where they have driven people who are undocumented into the shadows. And what does that do? It makes them less likely to come to court. It makes them less likely to drive safely. It makes them more likely to do a hit and run because of the profound consequences. That is not what we need here in Massachusetts. It's not consistent with our values. It is not logical, and it makes no sense. If anybody is going to accuse this law of potentially opening the door to widespread voter fraud or illegal voting, they better have the proof, and the people who oppose this law do not have it.
I do have the proof, and you went way off topic from anything I said. I never said that they would vote. I've had almost 500 foster children in my house over the last 30 years. 3 of them ended up on the voter registration rolls. They could have gone to vote if they wanted to, but I don't even know if they knew what they were doing. Now, this was at a time, I will admit this was before the automatic voter registration, which is what the legislature's trying to pass now. This was at a time when they went to the DMV. They were old enough to ask for their IDs, and the guy at the DMV kind of says, "Oh, do you want to vote?" They didn't know what they were saying. All 3 of them were from Africa, by the way. None of them were here completely legally. They filled out the form. The guy said, "Fill these out and you can vote." The next time my wife and I went to vote, I saw their names on the voter registration roll. And if I had to, I'm sure I could go back and find it for you. I can bring you the bacon.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that triggering event that you just mentioned does not apply in this case. You just told Tom that they did not go for a driver's license. So
no, they went for an ID, which is one of the 4 things that applies to the AVR. So the driver's license, the ID, mass health enrollment, and mass housing enrollment. And if you sign up for any one of those 4 things, you are automatically, according to this new law, which we're trying to appeal, they are automatically put on the voter registration rolls.
There's nothing that stops Massachusetts election system, which is the best in the country, in my view, at protecting our democracy, making people able to vote safely, securely, and comfortably. There's nothing that stops us from having safeguards in place to prevent this completely invented theory of widespread illegal voting that is not happening. There is no proof that people are voting illegally. If we're going to repeal a law that is designed and will make us more safe, then we need to have actual proof that repealing it is going to serve some other end. And the people who are against this law are trying to solve a problem that does not exist. I'm not going to the legislature to solve problems that don't exist. I'm going to the legislature, and I hope you send me there, to make us more safe, to make our families in a better position to live out our lives in the way that we want to live them. And repealing this law has nothing to do with those ends.
Tom, forgive me for taking more time.
No, please.
2 specific instances. Only my wife and I are registered to vote at my house, but somehow we got 4 applications for mail-in ballots. My daughters, who neither of them have lived with us for well over 10 years, they're still on the rolls somehow.
Did they vote?
No, but they got the application. What would have prevented me from sending one in on their behalf, and I could vote twice? I'm just saying. That's
I'm
one
glad
thing.
you didn't break the law.
No, I don't. I won't do that. The other thing, I was working as a greeter the last time Chelmsford had an election in April up in North Chelmsford. And a man came up and they don't have to, but he gave me his driver's license to make it easier to identify him. And I said, wow, I know this guy, and I'm not going to give his name. I know him and I know where he lives. And he goes, well, I'm his son. Oh. And I said, oh, I didn't know he had a son. So by law, I have to check him in because he was there. And I talked to my friend a little while later, and it turns out, no, I was right. He doesn't have a son. Now, this person obviously did not vote under his name because I checked it later, because later in the afternoon I was working as an actual check-in clerk who actually gives you the vote. And someone checked in through the greeter's desk using the only thing I can think of, a stolen or a fake driver's license. And then when he went in to vote, if he voted at all, he obviously voted under some other name.
Oh, did you see if he got a ballot, did you say, or you don't know?
I don't know. I should have taken the initiative to get up and tell the warden, but it was a very busy day. Oh, this is,
And Rod,
I'm sorry, this
should-
is during
Rod,
the 2020
you
election.
should have checked if you're going to start spreading these type of stories.
It's not a story.
But he showed you the ID, but yet you don't know if he pulled a ballot and voted.
I
right?
don't know. I was
So
working
why
as a
was he
greeter. We had a
checking in
line
with-
going out the door.
I wonder why he was checking in then like that. If you don't think he was maybe going to vote, you don't. But did you report this to the town clerk?
I did. But I'll agree with you in this. We are not a swing state. We do not have swing districts. So the voter fraud here is probably going to be less than any place else in the country. I mean, what we saw in the 2020 election, most of the problems that we suspect happened in other parts of the country. But we still have a problem in that until we get voter ID and ballot integrity, meaning serialize the ballots. So, okay, Chelmsford gets this block of serial numbers. That's it. So that if there is, now it's not to track the voters, but if there is an audit, then they can look at the serial numbers and say, wait a minute, we got 100 serial numbers that were never delivered to Chelmsford. How'd they get there? You got to find out.
Yeah.
The audit thing, I mean, ballots are as fungible as cash once they're cast. I'm legally to vote, I put it in. I'm illegal to vote, I put it in. Once they're in the machine and they've been scanned, nobody knows which ballot was mine or which ballot was somebody else's.
That's what we'd probably want, wouldn't it, Rodney? We wouldn't want the government to know how you voted, how I voted, how
No.
Simon voted, right?
No, I don't want them to
So
know.
we don't want any kind of ID, I
But
think, on the ballot.
It's
would-
intertwined. It's intertwined. What I'm trying to do, the whole point, the question you asked, and the point I wanted to start with was, let's get everybody with a valid Massachusetts address a license. I have no problems with that. Get them properly trained and evaluated. But make sure that it's not linked to automatic voter registration.
Yes.
And the state has done a poor job up till now to weed the illegal immigrants out. They've done a horrible job.
And Tom, notice what Rod's not saying, which is any proof to back this up. We are hearing right now, as we sit at this table, the same tropes that you're hearing, unfortunately, on the national news about auditing our elections. The people who run our election systems, they're your neighbors. You know these people. They are the town clerks in our town, and they're doing a great job. The Secretary of State does a very good job here in Massachusetts. Your vote will be counted. People who shouldn't be voting, their votes won't be counted. We just heard Rod go on for quite a long time about accusations of improper voting that he can't prove and admits that he doesn't even know happened. So this is not where we need to be focusing. The people of our district, they have real problems. We don't need to be inventing them. I'm running to make sure that your problems are addressed and your challenges are addressed and the opportunities that we have for government are fulfilled. That's what we need to do to build back trust in government, not lie to you about the integrity of our voting system.
I don't appreciate being called a liar, but I understand why you're saying it. I'll let it go at that.
Could I just clarify, though, because we seem to have two positions in terms of what actually happens. As I understand it, Rodney, you're saying an undocumented immigrant can get it, under the way the law is now, get the driver's license.
The way the law will be.
Oh, it's not this way now?
Well, we're recalling the law in November with any luck. So.
Is that a ballot question, or what do you mean?
No, it's a ballot question. It will be question 4 as soon as the Secretary of State actually prints a new voter.
So the Secretary of State, they sent me out this
it didn't include this
brochure,
question.
and there's no question. No. And you're saying there'll be another question?
There is going to be a question 4 on the ballot. That's what the whole license issue is all about. We got it in time. We had over 100,000 certified signatures to get this on the ballot, and the Secretary of State decided he didn't want to put it in the ballot thing. Maybe we didn't get there in time, but we got there by the deadline.
It may not be there.
But it'll be there.
But right, you're trying to repeal it, right?
Yes.
Right now you were saying they have to opt out of voter registration.
Correct.
Once they get a driver's license, an undocumented immigrant. And Simon, what's your knowledge of this? Being an attorney, how do you see this?
These people, Tom, are not going to be placed on the voter rolls. That is not
There won't be any opt-out.
It's not just going to be a surprise that people are applying for driver's licenses who don't have documentation. Yeah. We have one of the best statewide systems. We have great town clerks in our district who are going to be on top of this issue in this new development in the law. This is a public safety measure. It is not going to open up voting to people who should not be voting.
So Simon, if I understand you correctly, could I just clarify? You're saying there is no opt-out position where if they don't check that ballot, they will automatically be registered to vote, these undocumented immigrants. You're saying that doesn't exist?
They're not going to be automatically registered to vote.
That doesn't exist.
If the initiative goes through, it's absolutely going to be that way. Without question. I mean, did I have to bring paperwork with me tonight?
Are you talking about ballot question number 4, which hasn't been sent out yet?
The ballot question number 4.
Which hasn't been sent out yet, right?
Well, right now, the way the law is written right now, the 2020 law that the legislator passed, and this one Baker did sign, allows for anyone who gets a valid driver's license, standard driver's license, as you said, is automatically registered to vote unless they opt out.
That's what that's
right.
what
now,
I
that's
thought
on
you
the
said.
books. That's on the books right now.
But could I just quickly ask Simon, is that the way you see it, that it's on the books now, that they have to opt out, otherwise they will be registered to vote, these undocumented immigrants? Do you see it that way as well?
I'm not sure I track actually what Rod's describing, so I want to be clear on the question he's even posing. These folks that we're talking about now, they're not able to get the driver's licenses. So this is an expansion of who would be able to get a driver's license, and they would have to register in that respect.
That's what this whole license issue was all about, because they passed the law in 2020, which gave them automatic voter registration. Now they're trying to pass another law over the governor's veto, which says anybody can get a driver's license. So the two laws, when coupled together, allow for anybody in the state. Oh, and the other thing that goes on with this is, once you get a standard driver's license in Massachusetts, you can move to another state and say, yeah, I drove in Massachusetts, now I want to drive in Chicago. Yeah. And they just automatically give you a new license. So the good faith and credit clause of the Constitution is taken at face value with driver's licenses. Yeah. So that's even another issue. That piles it on.
But according to the question that I read, the undocumented immigrants are going to be able to get their driver's licenses starting on July 1st, 2023.
Correct.
Next year, in about 9 months, we'll say, because the governor vetoed it, but the House and the Senate overrode the veto.
If we don't repeal it.
That's what I have.
If we don't repeal it in November.
And that's what's a question number 1, right?
No, that's question number 4.
Okay, and is question number 4
Well, it will
going
be
to
4. If Galvin ever gets his act together.
Okay, so if there may be a question number 4, you're saying, that might repeal this law that was generally going to go into effect July 1st, 2023.
Correct.
I see.
Correct.
This will be number 4 on your ballot. It will be number 4.
Oh, it will be on. So the questions were sent out without question number 4, right? The red booklet, the red cover.
Right.
Of the Secretary of State booklet did not include this question 4, but it will be on the ballot, right?
It will be on your ballot.
I'll give the Secretary of State enough credit. Maybe he took that to press because he didn't think we'd get enough signatures. But so I'll give him a little bit of leeway. But he should have waited until we got we only needed 40,120 certified signatures, and we delivered over 100,000. So that question should be in that booklet as question number
Yeah,
4,
'cause
and it will be on the ballot.
It
as
was about
question
a
number
week
4.
ago I received that booklet,
I
right,
know.
from the Secretary of State.
I know.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, believe it
Sorry.
or not, which is, no, it's great. I love that we have an actual debate.
This is a hot
I
issue.
wish more of the candidate forums would be actual debates, and they're not. As you know, they're timed statements that the candidates give, and they're not able to debate each other. I think this is great that you were able to really debate each other, and I think the people at home watching this will get to know each candidate better because of the debate. And I hope you agree, but we'll see.
Well, Simon's a lot more handsome than I am, so.
Well, I think we have time for one more quick question, but it's probably one of the most important issues facing the world right now, which is global climate change. And Simon, it's your turn to begin this topic. So if you could only take about a minute in your answer, if possible. What can our state representatives do to help our state address the global climate change situation or problem?
Yeah, Tom, this is one area where we should acknowledge that a lot is being done and a lot recently has been done. We passed 2 successive major pieces of climate legislation, which were led by the state senator of our district, Senator Mike Barrett, that got national attention for the way that they're so forward-thinking about making sure that we are creating green energy, pumping it through our grid, and having end uses that aren't contributing to global climate change. My academic background is in environmental science. I think I'll be able to add a helpful perspective in this area. We do need to increase our use of offshore wind. We have a lot of work to do in fortifying our electric grid to make sure that we can safely pump green energy through our grid to its end uses in our transportation and our homes. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit in how we're building new buildings to make sure that they're electric and not dependent on natural gas. And I think that that's a huge opportunity for us here in Massachusetts.
Thank you, Simon. Rodney,
Excellent.
global climate
Excellent.
change?
You're going to call me a climate denier, climate change denier. Our climate has been changing for a millennium.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and we went through the little ice age.
Well, longer than that, yeah.
You know, the whole bit. So what the biggest concern was, it's coupled with, and you didn't bring this up, is the use of fossil fuels, the so-called Green New Deal. And I believe, you know, we have enough fossil fuel in the ground today, from what I can gather, and you actually might know more about this than I do, for about 200 years, just in this country alone. So why are we trying to flip a switch and go immediately to, you know, solar, wind, you know, whatever? We're not looking at all the individual alternatives. People get nervous about nuclear fuel, nuclear powers, as I do. Hydro is almost a thing of the past. We talk about getting electric vehicles, but nobody's talking about hybrids anymore. I used to own a Prius, and I get 72 miles to the gallon. I'd love to get that back again, rather than my Malibu that gets 26 miles to the gallon, especially with the price of gas these days. But yeah, you know, the greenhouse effect of using the fossil fuels has done it. But you know, the two cleanest countries in the world are the U.S. and Canada, followed very closely by Australia. So I mean, we have some very clean environments. We can do this, but let's give it some time to develop. We know that you know, solar and wind. Are we running out of time?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, look what happened in California. They want nothing but electric cars, but now they can't charge their cars after 5 o'clock at night.
Oh, I don't
And
know
you're
about
right.
that.
Well, yeah, the grid, you know, while they're
Oh, you mean,
recommending.
well,
The electric
but thank
grid is
you.
failing, so.
I see. That's because of that. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Simon Cataldo. Thank you, Rodney Cleaves. The election, to remind everybody, will take place on Tuesday, November 8th. However, all of our registered voters can start voting on October 22nd. Hopefully, if you just caught this part 2, hopefully you'll catch part 1 as well of this debate. I think you have another debate coming up next month, right, in October?
In Concord, League of Women
In Concord,
Voters,
League
right.
of Women Voters. So everybody, hopefully you'll catch that as well. I think we have 2 very great candidates running this year, a Republican and a Democrat, and I wish you both a lot of luck. Thank you very much for being on the Chelmsford News Show for this debate.
Thank you, Tom.
Take care.
Rod,
It's been
thank
fun.
you. Yes.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
And thank you, our director, Pete Padula, and our camera person, Karen. Thank you very much for watching the show. I'm Tom Christiano. Ciao.